in the UK, we were talking between 70 to 90% drop in volume as a result of COVID during the lockdown process. So, no one has ever seen statistics like that. I think airlines were reporting around about 90% drop. So, devastating effect during the lockdown period. That's hopefully we're probably after that point a bit in terms of some of the lockdown has been eased. And on the one hand, one could argue that there's a lot of pent-up demand in terms of people have been locked in their houses for, 2 or 3 months, depending on the country, and they are probably looking forward to going somewhere on holiday. But on the other hand, they are afraid of their health. They are conscious that potentially, going on holiday locally may be safer than going internationally because it involves taking a plane or going to a country which you're not sure about whether your health would be covered, whether you'll get health coverage, whether it's safe, etc. So there are all those elements. In parallel, the reality is that we're also looking at an economic crisis. So people, would have restricted budgets, or they may be more cautious with their money purely because they don't actually know what will happen. There's a bit of uncertainty about the safety of their jobs. In my experience, having been at TUI at the previous financial crisis, that usually affects more discretionary purchase spend. It would stop maybe the short-term holidays. People would still want to go on holiday, the 1 or 2 big holidays a year, because it's a big stress release process, right? It's the big event for a family. So I think that would still happen. I think the big question to all of us is where would it happen? And we'll go later in a bit of an insights, but I think that the initial insights we've seen is that there is a preference for domestic, there's a preference for private travel, which means that car is winning over planes, for example. I was talking, to give you an example, I was talking to Eurotunnel, which is a provider that basically takes, people can go into a train with their car and travel from the UK to France. 2 weeks ago, they had the busiest ever booking date ever, which in the UK. And the reason is that was the day that the government announced they're going to ease restrictions on the 4th of July. And the immediate surge was like people would want to go on holiday, but they would take their car to go to Europe. They're not going to take the plane, for example. So these are the things that would bear in mind. Also, people are very conscious of health, and a big bet on anyone is to prove that it is safe to go on holiday in a country, in a resort, in a hotel, in a museum. So I think this should be the first priorities. I do eventually think that, in the long, short term would be tricky. Businesses have to prove to customers it's safe to go to them, and it's things are taken care of, and it's still a great thing to go and do. And also that the social distancing or wearing a mask doesn't impact their ability to enjoy holidays. But I think tourism would rebound quicker than business travel, for example. So, if I'm an airline, I will be far more worried than if I'm a tourist provider, purely because a lot of our airlines are relying on business travel. And I think the pandemic has changed the perception of how you can do business. People can see they can do it remotely. And on top of that, a financial crisis, an economic crisis would affect business. So, you could, in summary, if you're purely domestic travel, I think you actually are going to rebound relatively quickly. If you're international, there would be a rebound, but it would take more time. You need to instill confidence. If you're relying on business travel, then you have a long way to go. Long answer.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. The trend with domestic travel, I think I can confirm this at least also for the colleagues in our office. Even the work from home is now actually more work from the North Coast in Egypt and work from other places. I think they enjoy the freedom to have the flexibility to pick and choose the place. And yes, it's true. Somehow, a lot of people, we see them already still traveling, but very strongly, definitely domestically. You mentioned a few times airlines being one of the worst hit, and I think Silke, just thank you also for being on the call. You know exactly how that feels right now, and you had a very tough last month heading Lufthansa for the whole region, the sales for Lufthansa. And maybe you can tell us also a little bit about how do you see the trends right now, and how quickly do you expect actually the return to business as usual, and will there be a business as usual And then also, is it more the midterm or really a long-term future to go back to normal?
Thank you very much also for the invitation. I've been with Lufthansa Group since 2005 and was busy and taking over positions in different fields like marketing, revenue management, business development. And definitely the crisis that we have seen right now is something even my colleagues that have been 35 years and longer with the company haven't seen such a crisis. Asking for a bailout package, it's extraordinary, and definitely the airlines, as you mentioned, were the first one in the crisis and will be the last one out. What we have seen right now, and I think we can pretty much have it like clustered in steps. The first step was the grounding phase that happened from approximately beginning of March now till end of May, where we grounded up to 98% of our capacity. Only 2% was still flying, and we had to find parking slots for the aircraft, and even the 2% we were flying at capacity, the flights were not fully booked. In passenger numbers, this looks even more drastic. We had there in this phase, in this grounding phase, we used the chance to have a minimum connectivity with the so-called repatriation flight schedule that we did. We also had some flights from Egypt that we continuously flew, and also even having one destination per continent that we were still flying and connecting people at least to a minimum that we could do. Coming to the second step in this phase, we are right now, it's the so-called restart phase. We are adding capacity. We are adding now more and more aircrafts back into our system, and try to also see how that will work. There are restrictions, and it makes this for us really, really difficult, because coming from a complete lockdown more or less into really country-specific regulations and requirements, it's from an airline point of view, it's super difficult also to handle this, and it changes so fast. So also there we have to see how we manage that also in the operation. And then coming to your question, when will it be back and when do we expect it? Definitely we call it the third phase, the new normal. This will be most probably as of 2023. So there we are like looking forward, having the same levels as maybe 2018-19, but not before that. And there definitely a reorganization, a restructuring also from our side will be necessary, because we see the changes in demand. And I completely agree. Leisure travel is the one that is currently booming, and that will be booming now for the next days and months. We will see a drop in business travel. All companies independent on which sector they are hit by this crisis and have to reduce the travel spending. So definitely there will be business travel, but on a much, much lower level than we used to have it. So coming back, yes, there is a future for air travel. I clearly see that, but it will definitely change a lot.
Okay, thank you so much for the initial insights. Lawrence, coming to you, you're based in Dubai, and Dubai and the UAE definitely is one of the economies which is very highly dependent also on expats, on tourists. And the government is usually known in the region for being very much future oriented. What kind of measures do you see or do you observe, and what other things you also discuss then with other senior leaders in the tourism industry? What is taken right now for tourists to get the confidence back, as also Dimitri said, for health, etc., to get them back into the country and to stir up tourism again?
Yeah. So thanks, Martin, for the question, also for the AHK in Cairo for inviting me. Indeed, the situation in the UAE or Dubai is particularly challenging for the fact that the country the population is relatively small. Yeah? We have to bear in mind we have a population of less than 10 million. If we deduct the low-cost labor forces, we end up with around 5 million in population. At the same time, the country received in 2019 over 20 million visitors. So if I compare this to Egypt, Egypt with a population of around 100 million people is hosting around 14 million, or has hosted around 14 million tourists in 2019. So you can imagine from that what the effect on the economy is. And we just talked about the airline travel. I mean, the UAE is receiving over 95% of all its tourists or visitors via plane. Yeah? So that is a huge challenge for them, particularly the only people driving by car into the country were from Saudi Arabia, which is a very important local market, given the liberal economic and also touristic regulations in terms of hospitality, in terms of events, in terms of hotels and other exciting experiences that you can have in Dubai, and Saudi borders are closed. So here we see a very, very big decline. What has the government done? The government has basically immediately put in measures in place because it is such a vital industry sector. Number one, what has been done is relief packages in the sense that any additional fees like municipality fees, tourism fees have been waived. Second, the key part is to actually what Dubai has been doing very well in terms of marketing, particularly as a city themselves, is to continue doing that with heavy visibility. So, for example, the Dubai Virtual Hub in collaboration with Google, so you can basically go through the streets and see the city from abroad, making really sure that the advantages of the city and the tourist attractions still remain visible. Number two, a lot has been done to also encourage visitors to come, in the sense of taking any risks or fears away when it comes to safety. So there is any tourists that are coming into Dubai, they have to go through a mandatory COVID test before departure, and all the, let's say, precautionary measures that are being mandatory in the hotels, restaurants, and other attractions, masks, sanitizers, and so on. All of that has been put in place very, very fast and in a very, very coordinated manner, helping recreate that confidence. And the third part, which I find particularly unique, and maybe here there's a measure, let's say an opportunity also, if I look at Egypt, is, Martin, you mentioned the example of our colleagues who like them to, even though they have to work from home, maybe they can work from another place that is outside of the cramped city. We have in the UAE a so-called phrase, it's called staycation. Yeah, it's very, very popular if you're living in a high-rise apartment with 300-400 other apartments in the same building. You really want to, even in summer when it's very hot, you want to get kind of a different perspective, a different location. And the hotels, even though tourism has halted basically completely until July, the successful hotels, they've been still able to get an occupancy of 30% plus, which is remarkable. 30% occupancy by giving dedicated staycation offers, by giving special discounts to residents. You can both either stay at the hotel overnight, and you get vouchers to be redeemed for F&B and other activities that the hotel offers, or they also introduced daily rates. So you, for a fee, you can use the hotel facilities, i.e. the pool, the access to the beach, and then here, of course, you have the free market. Some are very smart in how they spread their messages, how they use all social media from Instagram and so on, with the right influencers to at least cover parts of the fixed costs and generate incremental revenue. And now, if I just do a simple calculation, because when I looked at the numbers, I found this very remarkable. In Dubai, you have the average tourist stays around 3.5 nights. Yeah. We had around 2019, 35 million room nights. So essentially, if I break this down to a population of 10 million, so it's basically 2 to 3 weekend staycations over the summer for the residents in the UAE to compensate, at least from a numbers perspective, not on the revenue perspective, but on the room nights perspective, the lack in tourists. And this is where the government is doing a lot of support in this regard.
Okay, thank you so much for the initial insights. Now, coming from the global perspective to the airline industry through the MENA region, closing in into Egypt, Hans-Heinz, thank you so much also for being on this call, for being on this webinar. You have two hats on today. On the one side, being a chamber board member, and on the other side, being an owner of tourism companies and spending already, being since more than 18 years in Egypt. You have seen more than one crisis in the tourism industry in Egypt, and it was supposed to be this year that tourism just contributes around 12% to the overall GDP in Egypt. Of course, this is very significant what happened right now with the drop in tourism. In the past, Egypt has always proven to bounce back quickly. Do you think that this time is going to be the same, or do you think this time everything's going to be different?
Well, as you said, I'm 18 years in Egypt, 16 years in the diving industry. And the diving industry, you mentioned the contribution of tourism to the Egyptian economy. Divers are actually the tourists who spend most money in the country per person. Of course, let's say the normal tourist has food, accommodation, the famous all-inclusive package. But divers have the all-inclusive package, and they spend even more than this amount on diving. And this money remains in foreign currency inside the country immediately. So divers are actually an important factor in tourism, despite the fact that the numbers are not that big as the overall tourism. But back to your question. Unfortunately, I think this year the situation is different from the crisis we had in the past, because in the past the crisis in tourism in Egypt were basically homemade. There was still an intact flow of tourism willing to come to Egypt, but there was this destination all of a sudden was blocked. So simply the flow of tourists went to other countries, Spain, Greece, Turkey. They absorbed this flow of tourists. And so until the situation in Egypt was declared safe again, and then of course the flow of tourists came also back to Egypt rather quickly. Unfortunately, this time the situation is slightly different, because as Dimitri already mentioned in his introduction, now all our potential customers have corona-based problems at home, in their home countries. So there's still potential lockdowns in place, uncertainty how the economy will develop. The unemployment rate is rising in almost every country. Traveling and mass transportation implies a higher risk for getting infected. And when you when you sum up all these facts, then it's easy to understand that less people have first the will and then also the money to travel, especially to the destinations where mass transportation is a must. And as Lawrence already said, more than 98% of the tourists come to Egypt by plane. But last not least, already also mentioned, the question the tourists will ask themselves, what if I get infected in the destination? So where is can I have trust and into the safety and health precautions inside the country. What happens to me if I get infected? So that's why trust into the safety and the healthcare system has to be built if it's not yet there. So this, for me, is one of the main magnets to attract tourists again.
Okay, thank you so much for your view. Dimitris, maybe we can come back to you actually. And one of the things we did quite earlier, Simon Kutcher, which was led by you, was a global study on consumer behavior. What are really the preferences? Maybe you can share a few of those insights and about the expected changes in tourism consumer behavior. And then we can combine this also directly with maybe some ideas or some initiatives that companies and tourism operators, hotels, airlines that can take to commercial activities to survive and later on also, of course, strive again.
Yeah, so I'll just share an infographic which has the main one moment. The main insights from our study. I hope it can be seen, but I'll just go through it very quickly just to go through what we found. So the new normal changes as a result of COVID-19. This study was done, includes insights from Germany, France, UK, Netherlands, in Europe, but also the US. And this is the general consensus we got from Europe, which I suspect is more relevant for Egypt from a source market perspective. We've asked people when they will travel again, and there's a section that they would want to travel as soon as they can. So 30% said as soon as we are allowed, and then 34 when safety measures are in place, 26% not until 2021. So that by itself starts to state that we're starting from a basis where at least a third of customers would not travel in the interim, in the very short term, right? They'll wait till 2021. In terms of how they want to travel, car is fundamentally winning. People want a private transport. So cruise, as you can imagine, impacted the most. 64% said they would travel less by cruise than they did before COVID, and only 7% more. Air was 53%, car was 12% less, but 37% more. So there's a general trend in terms of transporting to our holiday. People would prefer to use their car because they feel more safe with it. Health and flexibility are important. So 36% of people demand health measures to travel. But what is interesting is people put in equation, they put the same importance to health as well as flexibility in terms of money back guarantee. So, the travel industry over the years has introduced fare structures where potentially you pay a lower price, but you cannot change it. You lose your money if you cancel your plans. This is something that hit a lot the industry. There was a lot of discussion about airlines not paying back people if they change their flights and giving them vouchers and things like that. So that has really elevated the importance. So as much as health is important, it's also the ability that people feel they're flexible. They won't lose their money. They can change their travel plans in the interim. So that's a key theme that has come in. Staycations, as I believe Lawrence also mentioned, 36% of people will do more domestic trips than before versus 77% more international. So clearly a driver of people traveling domestically, and in everyday travel, use car, bike versus shared bike or car rental versus public transportation. However, what is interesting, and that's something that it's worth bearing in mind, there is difference by segment. So younger people are more keen to travel than older people, and purely probably linked by the fact that, the COVID has been has been registered in people's mind as it affecting older people far more than younger people. So younger people are keener to travel, richer are keener to travel, linked to economic crisis worries that richer people are probably feel more secure against the crisis than poorer people. And as we said, business travel more than leisure. So there are some key themes here which I think are important. And when you look at those things, you from a travel provider perspective, you start saying, okay, can I focus? What can I do to focus more my source markets to the domestic travel, right? Or to neighboring countries where people can travel by car, and the borders are open. What can I do with my terms? I need to have more flexible rates. I can no longer have the hotel rates of yeah, pay now and you don't get your money back, you can't change. You have to be more flexible. So these are two things that I think are important. And from a commercial perspective, I mean, we could go through later as well, but I think there are things like, how do I potentially maybe focus more on younger segments or richer segments, which are more likely to travel? Or equally, maybe focus to loyal customers. Do I use my loyalty schemes as a way to get those people first in and experience that it's safe to do so? Confidence is going to be a big thing for the industry, which is the health measures. And people need to be convinced that their health is intact, there's not a risk, and they still can enjoy their holiday. So, there is an element of what you would like to do is get some people in, experience that, talk about it. And the easiest people will be the loyal customers, the domestic customers, the people who have some affiliation and they have less risk to come in. So these are the things that I would probably have in people's minds on how to move forward with that, and what are the first initiatives to make.
Okay, thank you so much, Dimitris. For Silke, especially for Lufthansa, we've seen that Lufthansa started reoperating certain flight routes again, and announced this also quite prominently. And we have definitely also established now a fixed connection again between Europe and Egypt, definitely also between Germany and Egypt. Do you see certain changes in flight guest behavior already? And one thing just Dimitris said is the experience. Now, I think, and also combining this with what Lauren said with the social media incentives that Dubai hotels use, experience can come from two different ways. On the one side, the people who fly themselves and simply try it out and then find out, it was just as normal, so I would fly again. But on the other side, also make people share their experience and their positive experience to create these incentives to get more people back into tourism and back into the convenience and the comfort of flying. Actually, this is the one angle. So do you see this and this behavior changes? Are there changes or not? And then the second question is, what are the things commercial initiatives you are envisioning? Is Lufthansa then trying to combine offers with other tour operators, is there bundle ideas with other operators actually to create packages for tourists? And what are flexibility and other initiatives you as an airline want to take to incentivize people to come back actually?
Well, a lot of questions. Let me try to bundle it a bit. Yes, definitely we see a change in traveler behavior. People, even our frequent flyers that used to fly really a lot, senators, Hunt Circle members, they ask no questions. They are not sure how they should behave. I get questions from frequent travelers: when should I be at the check-in? How long before departure? How does it work? What do I need to do? What is it? So we try really to have a broad communication, first of all on global levels, so from Lufthansa, Austrian and Swiss, but also on a local level by having these webinars, by having our key account managers with the customers and also communicating there. We have some social media formats, communication formats, which is Meet the Expert. I can just advise you, if you want to get some insights from Lufthansa Group, to log into Facebook or our Instagram channels, LinkedIn. There are great interviews from colleagues of ours who really explain what's currently being developed and all the backgrounds. Yeah, so you can ask questions and they will explain it. So I learned also a lot about this HEPA filters in the planes. So we have a colleague explaining how actually the air is flowing and how the hygienic measures on board are being improved all the time. But coming back from the communication part, we have also one format, which is the flying reporter, also one colleague who is actually flying and goes the way step by step by filming the steps, so that you can actually be part of this journey even before you board the aircraft. It helps also to boost a bit of the confidence. And thirdly, shortly, when you have booked with us, and our call center volumes, our call volumes increased a lot. So whenever you booked with us, either online or via our call center, you get a traveler briefing. So we have 3 days before departure, you will get a certain briefing where you get also more information about wearing the masks. What does it mean? How will it work? What kind of catering can you expect, and so on. So coming from a communication side, we do a lot. And if there are any questions, of course, we also take them, answer them, and try also to give feedback to headquarters to also produce more material. What we also see, and that's definitely a change coming from the lack of confidence and the increase of information needed, that people really book really last second, I would say, not even last minute, last second. So for us, of course, it's a huge challenge in seeing the customer behavior to last second booking. Do we have the right capacities in place? Do we have the right offer in place? So that really shift. It was over the years like decreasing the pre-booking period, but now we see actually an increase like 3 days before departure, when really people start to book. Which is a change, and also gives us some challenges from our side and also from the operational side. Looking at the what kind of commercial parts we do, coming to the second part of your question. Reboosting the confidence is definitely one part. So for the first part, for the first phase, we flexibilized all our offers. So whenever you book with us, you can have a free rebooking. You can, whenever there's something changing, we have definitely changes also in place, that you can just call our call center and have whatever fare you have booked in advance. You can rebook free of charge to the same destination, but to another date. And also from the home markets, we have introduced the so-called Bring Me Home guarantee. That also gives you, like, again, a confidence that whenever you fly, and this fare product exactly we have from the home market, so from Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, and Belgium, coming to a worldwide destination, that you are sure that whenever something happens with you, that you will get on the next flight back, and even we would arrange a special flight for you. So basically what I don't see commercially, that you can actually increase by special offers, like 50% off. You cannot increase the demand right now. There is a certain group that will fly and that you have to work on, but definitely it will be less than before. And with aggressive price promotions, you will not increase the target group at all. So we really look into more into flexibility, into tested information package, and then be there, and also be there first of all locally with our sales force, but also then at the station, so that whenever you have a question, even throughout your journey, you will find touch points all over, and also with our digital advice, with the chatbot that we have, and so on.
Okay, so thanks for sharing this. This actually, it's very, very good news, and it's very interesting to see what kind of measures Lufthansa already took. And I flew already with Lufthansa, and I felt actually pretty safe and pretty confident. So I can assure that the measures you took, they actually work. Quite interesting. What you said is fits very well also what Dimitri said or found out in the survey, that the target group now is maybe the bit more richer group, the younger group, people who anyway would like to travel. And what you said was very important, that this is not the time to attract people with purely discounts or with pure commercial offers. This time, this also goes very closely then to what Hans-Heinz said in the beginning. It's not a sourcing problem in terms of what we had maybe in previous crises in Egypt, where there was something happened in Egypt and we need to bring back the confidence in a country. This is not about the confidence in a specific country. This is the confidence more about the movement and the health confidence in general. So this is, and there's a lot of different initiatives that you took already. Now, Lawrence, if we come back to you and to you work also a lot in the tourism industry, and tourism has many different angles. On the one side, it's the traveling itself by plane, by car, etc. But there's much more behind it. Of course, there's different locations, there's museums, there's different. In Egypt, we have, of course, the pyramids. There's many other locations actually where we see a tourism. What are the initiatives, the commercial initiatives that the leaders you deal with actually discuss and talk and take? Are these commercial initiatives purely, are they focusing more on the price and the product and the service, or as Silicon also Dimitris suggested, are they more on building this confidence and building this safety around actually the overall travel package?
Yeah, indeed, it is more the latter. It is really about creating that confidence and again supporting with marketing to keep up this visibility. It's also due to the fact that the government has also very limited funds to further support commercially. We are in a free economy with almost zero taxation, so it's the company's responsibilities to really show the entrepreneurship. The government is more can give supportive directions. What I found very interesting is the level of let's say adaptability amongst the different players. Now, to give you examples, you have the classic tourist hotspots. We have the tallest building in the world in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa. That is a magnet for tourists, and it's kind of the must. Like you said, for Cairo, it's the pyramids. If you come to Dubai, you need to go on top of the Burj Khalifa. Obviously, these tourists are not there. So what did they do? They made an initiative to offer yoga classes on the tourism platform, right? Of course, it is probably not comparable fully to the number of tourists that would be paying $30 or more as an entrance fee. But again, you looking at a different customer segment, i.e. the local residents, and being different, differentiating yourself from the others by coming up with a new idea that is, again, this entrepreneurial spirit that has made Dubai what it is, with the help of the government. And what is the government doing? I mean, if you look at Dubai, the Dubai Tourism Board, they have actually created that platform. It's called Dubai Summer Surprises. So there's every day there's new surprises where companies can actually bring in their offers and communicate their offers. So the communication platform is being provided by the government, but it's on the players themselves to come up with creative ideas. And those are things I was just recently, I've seen that is you have, for example, if you shop in a mall above a certain threshold, you can participate in building a Lego mosaic, for example, and be part of that, and then share it on Instagram, something that also attracts children and again increases the visibility. So I would say the success factors are being radically different and innovative. Think about how you can cater for different customer segments, and on the other side, that kind of more platform approach by the government.
Okay, thank you so much. And coming back to Egypt, Hans-Heinz, now we're almost already in the middle of the summer. So what do you expect to happen in the next couple of weeks? And the initiatives that were just described also by Silke, by Lawrence, by Dimitris, that we're focusing, that it's not a commercial game in terms of a discount. It's not about giving discounts, but much more about being creative, creating alternative offers, understanding really the segments that come into the country, and to understand the tourism flows, and creating new types of offers. That this will be the success factors. Do you see this also true and the same for Egypt for the next coming weeks?
Yes, and already facing this problem, the government has established new health and safety standards for the hotels. So only a hotel who has passed the standard test, there's an inspection and then giving a license to the hotel to operate at least with an occupancy rate of 50%. So around at the moment, 280 hotels have passed this test and can at least receive local customers. Of course, now it's the summer months for Egyptians, and I hope that a lot of Egyptians do what the Germans do at the moment. They discover their home country as a holiday destination. On the other hand, I also agree with what Silke, for example, said, and that, or you also mentioned it, a discount, if somebody is afraid to travel, then to a certain destination or to travel in general, then a discount of 50 or 100 euros would not take away this fear. So definitely this would be the wrong way to go. On the other hand, building trust is mentioned many times now. And building trust you can only do by being in contact with your customers. So this is what we are trying also. We don't want to lose the contact to our customers. We do online, we do webinars as well. We do online courses. We have developed special kids programs online. Some of them are free of charge. So we are in a constant contact. We do personal stories about our employees and put it on Instagram or on Facebook. So our customers are still in a close contact with us. In the meantime, of course, we have to pay salaries. We don't want to go, our good people go. So this is the short-term problem. And on the other hand, once the crisis is over, and this will definitely not be over before there is a medical solution to the COVID-19. So I think this will not be for Easter next year. So in the meantime, for short-term Egyptian tourists, yes, foreign tourists with very limited numbers. Don't forget that the European travel warning goes until the end of August so far, which actually means the end of the vacation for most of summer vacations for most of European countries. Foreign tourists, only very limited numbers, and I hope as many as possible Egyptian customers. All this under the condition that the second wave, the famous second wave, is not coming either to Egypt or other European countries.
Okay, thank you so much. So what we're going to do now is, if there's any questions from the audience, we're happy to direct them then to the panelists. If there are questions, to answer them directly. But I think so far we reached already very, very interesting insights. On the one side, and we've seen that yes, there is a change on the one side in tourism customer or consumer segments. There's a change in terms of behavior, and very importantly, we see already very creative initiatives from tourism operators on how to, on the one side, create, well, from the airline industry, how to create this confidence in health. Security, be flexible, and on the other side also creating alternative offers for domestic tourism. And this is something I think where as we agreed, where what all of you see also where we have the biggest potential in creating new and alternative offers for domestic travel right now, and bringing back the confidence to the people who are already close, to have a closer proximity actually to the different sites. Now, are there any questions from the audience? And if some of you, Silke, Lawrence, and Heinz, or Dimitris, if you want to add something to the things we already discussed, just feel free. In the meantime, we're seeing then if there's any questions from the audience.
What I would like to add, that is especially from my perspective, Egypt is a unique destination for European tourists, because for divers it's a paradise, the Red Sea and the marine life there. So definitely the divers are always the last ones to leave and the first ones to come back if there was a crisis. And so I'm pretty optimistic, as also Dimitri mentioned. People want to spend their vacation, and Egypt is only 4 hours away from Europe. And when Egypt can prove that it will be a safe destination to go to, then definitely the chances are good that tourism will come back. But a lot of factors are still influencing this whole scenario.
And
I can.
Sorry, go on.
I can maybe also add that Lufthansa has now partnered up with a laboratory, and that we offer for customers also flying out of Egypt to Europe and to Germany and need a COVID test, that we have some facilities at the Frankfurt airport. I tested it myself. It's quite easy. You have to register before, and then they will do all tests, and you will get it the results within 3 to 9 hours, depending on the package that you choose. And that's also one part that you don't have to go into quarantine in certain counties in Germany if you have this negative COVID test. And maybe also that's information if you want to travel that you can also spread. So it's not really complicated. It's not costly. It's about 59 euro to 139 euro, depending on the package. And yeah, it's easy. And also there we try also to boost again the confidence and also make it easy accessible for all our customers.
Good news.
Maybe to add to these comments of Hans, and in terms of the diving is a great example. Let's not forget, I mean, I'm in Greece at the moment, and one thing I actually like the fact that I'm probably going to be able to go to Ireland and not be as busy as it has been last year. So in a way, if you can find those segments, and the dive is a good example, is like you can actually advertise that, you know, come to us. It's actually going to be as pristine as it ever has been, right? Because there are not going to be that many people. So they you know, can we find segments that their willingness to come is bigger than the risk of them feeling anything with their health? And obviously, as a starting point, other things that I would probably urge the Egyptian tourism to look at is, can they work with the government to find schemes that incentivize the domestic travel? You look at Italy, I think they've given a voucher to incentivize Italians to go on holiday in Italy. In the UK, the VAT has been dropped for holiday businesses from 20 to 5%. So these are schemes that are fundamentally the biggest promotions you could ever get to get people domestically, and whether they can do that. And I think the other thing that I would probably, I mean, we talked about flexibility, that's important. We talked about loyal customers and focusing on that. What is important for Egyptian tourism is also to look at how they negotiate 2021 with tour operators, right? Because, you know, we look at 2020 at the moment, and that's short term what you can do. But this is the time that the TUIs would come and talk about what is the contract for 2021. And the, you know, on the one hand, you know, if you're a business that you need cash, you may succumb to a very low rate or, you know, money in advance and things like that. What I would probably say is that I would also urge people to look at being as flexible as possible, not relying on one or two source markets, because you don't know how the situation would be in 2021. And you need to be open to not just rely on one tour operator to fill your hotel, but be open to driving things directly or domestically, etc. So that's one thing that would bear in mind, because we don't know how 2021 would be, and this has obviously taught us that you need to be more flexible with not relying on one source market or two.
Yeah, agree. Okay, thank you very much. I think we're coming to an end. We're running out of time for this webinar. Thanks, Silke, thanks, Lawrence, and Hans and Dimitris, for all the insights you had, for all the insights you shared. If we have somebody in the audience also who has further questions, just feel free to reach out directly to us through the chamber or directly to one of our experts. We're very happy to also have a discussion with you or discuss then concrete initiatives with you, how to take this forward. And yeah, looking forward then to hopefully we hope the best for the tourism in the region, and in particular, of course, also Egypt. Yeah, looking forward to see you then soon. So I've seen now coming a few more questions, but I don't know with the time if we still have time to answer them.
I think we can take them. I think it would be okay to answer them. We have one question from Mr. Omar Sher. He's the CEO of Blue Sky Company. And we have another question for Lufthansa, I think, or as any question regarding the. I think we can spare 2 minutes. Yeah.
Great. Okay, perfect. So, so maybe Silke, that one question is there any info when European countries will open the tourism from Egypt again?
Yeah, as far as I know, and there we have to depend on the embassies as well as on the European governments. They are looking at it, but there is no info right now. If you look into the country clusters, for Germany, there is still till end of August the so-called Reisewarnung, the warning, travel warning for Egypt as well as for other countries. And Austria has just announced as of today that no plane from Egypt may land in Austria right now, independent which carrier. So basically, I don't see there any ease right now, unfortunately. But situation may change quite fast.
Dimitris, do you have any experience or any particular insights for other countries from Europe when they will open tourism into Europe again?
Tourism into Europe from Egypt, you mean, or tourism from Europe to Egypt?
No, from Egypt to Europe. This was the question, actually.
I think if you see the trends, we're moving into a world of bridges, air bridges, at least in the short term, right? You see every country creating those. So like the UK, for example, has put this 14-day quarantine, but it had put it as an exemption Spain, Italy, Greece, and other countries, mainly EU countries, in that clause fundamentally. So I think it's going to be a case-by-case situation. I don't think it's going to happen now, to be honest. I think Egypt is still on the risk side of that, in terms of, at least from a UK perspective, that where I'm based. So I think that would not happen immediately, and it is more about it goes more to a government and political basis, right? How much can Egypt influence other governments to create that air bridge? Because we're in that world, and on top of that, there is a bit of EU protectionism, if you ask me. I think there's a preference for the EU states to collaborate first between them and then open to other countries, which is what you're seeing at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So it's still unforeseen.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question was also then directed to Lufthansa. As the airline businesses naturally have high seasonalities, and now we're approaching actually of the high summer season is in the middle of the high summer season, or will actually pass without high tourism volumes. Will there be more price pressure and pressure for other initiatives when we approach the low season?
So basically, our peak month, at least for Lufthansa Group, is September, October, and but definitely as corporate travel will not be back, definitely there will be a high pressure, and it's all about capacities in the market, and it's all about what kind of offer. As I mentioned before, I don't see that we will go too much on the pricing side, because I think there is no really demand that you can stimulate by aggressive price promotion. It's more, like I mentioned before, being flexible, offering extra services, and really boost the confidence. But you won't see any super aggressive pricing measures from our side, definitely. Okay,
great. These were the two open questions. Thank you so much to all of you for your insights, for expertise. And if there's any other questions, just feel free to reach directly to us. We're happy to answer them, happy to discuss them, then also offline. And then we wish all of you a good day, and then hope to see you soon at some point in person again.
And stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Bye.